Hi children, I am Madhavi, your biology teacher from BRGS. Be happy and be healthy. Let's start the lesson, life process. So, in the last class we have learnt about respiration in the human being. So, in this video we are going to learn about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Let's get into it. So in the last video we have learnt about the respiration process of human being. So when the air passes through nose, means nostrils, then it enters into nasal cavity, that is pharynx and larynx, and it passes through trachea. Their trachea further divides into two tube-like structures called bronchi, and bronchi further divides branches like bronchioles, and at the end of the bronchioles air sacs are called alveoli. So this is the process of respiration in human being. So there are 4 steps in respiration. Breathing. Breathing means inhaling and exhaling. Inhale the oxygen and exhale the carbon dioxide. This process is called breathing. And external respiration. What is external respiration? When the air passes into lungs, so there in the end of the bronchioles, air sacs called alveoli. So in the alveoli, the oxygen jump into blood. So and the carbon dioxide which carries from the blood goes to alveoli. So there the external respiration takes place. Means the air passes through alveoli and there the gases exchange takes place between alveoli and blood. So that is called external respiration. And internal or tissue respiration. Blood carries oxygen to the rest of the body, means to all the organs. So organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are nothing but cells. So the oxygen reaches to cell. So and from the organs carbon dioxide gives out to the blood. So there in the tissue place, in the tissue part, the respiration takes place. That is called internal respiration. And the 4th one is cellular respiration. After reaching the oxygen to the tissue, there in the cell the respiration takes place. In the cell, mitochondria. In the mitochondria respiration takes place. That is called cellular respiration. And in the last video also we have known about alveoli. Air passage divides into smaller tubes which finally end with balloon-like structures called alveoli, in which gas exchange take place. So what happens exactly in alveoli? Air passage divides into smaller tubes which finally end with balloon-like structure called alveoli, in which gas exchange takes place. This is very important. So in alveoli, internal respiration takes place, means their gas exchange takes place. And let's move on. Here in some of the animals, so through some organs respiration takes place. Through plasma membrane respiration takes place in amoeba, and tracheal respiration, that is in grasshopper. Branchial respiration in fish. Cutaneous respiration in earthworm. Cutaneous respiration means through skin of the earthworm the respiration takes place. Next, pulmonary respiration, that is in humans, reptiles, birds. And respiration in animals. So in respiration animals means what are the things required for the respiration, for a good respiration. See here, a large surface area to get enough oxygen. So it needs large surface area. So that is the reason. If you see alveoli is like air sacs, means it occupies more surface area to absorb more oxygen and to throw out the carbon dioxide also. So it needs more large surface and thin permeable area for easy diffusion of gases. So thin permeable is required for respiration, and abundant blood supply for transporting respiratory gases, means the blood should be supplied more for the transporting respiratory gases. And in the last video you have seen this. So respiration in plants through stomata, means in leaves and green stem, stomata present. So through stomata respiration takes place. And lenticles, in woody stem and roots lenticles are present, so which takes place in respiration. And root hairs in young roots. So in young roots, if you see, hair-like structures are there on the roots. So that young roots, through young roots also respiration takes place in some plants. And the respiration types, there are two types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration and another one is anaerobic respiration. So if you take the aerobic respiration, there are 4 steps. That is breathing, exchange between lungs and blood, exchange between blood and organs, and the 4th one is cellular respiration. So first one is breathing. Breathing means inhale and exhale. That process is called breathing. And exchange between lungs and blood. So between lungs and blood, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. Means the oxygen jump into blood and from the blood carbon dioxide gets into lungs. So that is called internal respiration also. So that is second step. And third step is exchange between blood and organ. So the oxygen which is absorbed by the blood, so that blood carries that oxygen to the rest of the body, means all the organs. So there exchange between blood and organs, that is called internal respiration. So the second one is called external respiration. So now the last one is cellular respiration. Cellular respiration takes place in mitochondria in the cell. So mitochondria, so finally it releases the energy with the help of oxygen. That oxygen breaks down the food and it produces energy and carbon dioxide. Let us learn about this respiratory system more better understanding. So we'll go through some visuals.
Phew! I am out of breath. Let me get some air.
Air is vital for us as it contains oxygen. Oxygen is used to break down the food we eat into energy. This energy, in turn, is used by us for various activities like running, walking, swimming, and cycling. This lesson is about the process of respiration. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to define respiration, differentiate between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, explain how glucose is broken down, define ATP, define diffusion, explain the process of respiration in plants, explain how the respiration process in aquatic animals is adapted to their environment, and in human beings.
I don't understand. We breathe in oxygen, but breathe out carbon dioxide?
We breathe or inhale oxygen, which then diffuses into the tissues and breaks down glucose and produces energy. This results in the formation of carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide gets eliminated from the body, but the oxygen remains behind. This process of inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide is called breathing, and the metabolic process for producing energy is known as respiration. Carbon dioxide is present in atmospheric air. However, when we exhale, we breathe out a greater amount of carbon dioxide than the amount that is present in the atmospheric air. Exhaled air is composed of 5.6% carbon dioxide, whereas inhaled air contains 0.03% carbon dioxide. Let's try to prove this through an experiment. Take 2 test tubes containing freshly prepared lime water. Blow air through the lime water in the first test tube. Use a syringe to pass air through the lime water in the second test tube. You will observe that in the first test tube, the lime water turns milky immediately. You will find that it takes longer for the lime water to turn milky in the second test tube as compared to the first test tube. This proves that air contains less carbon dioxide than the amount that we breathe out. Even microorganisms release carbon dioxide. Let's try out an activity to demonstrate this. Take some fruit juice in a flask and add some yeast to it. Fit the flask with a 1-holed cork. Fit the cork with a bent glass tube. Dip the free end of the glass tube into a test tube containing lime water. You will find that the lime water turns milky. From this activity, you can conclude that microorganisms release carbon dioxide. Yeast acted on the sugar present in the fruit juice and released carbon dioxide. This process is called fermentation. Glucose can be broken down both in the presence or in the absence of oxygen. All higher animals need oxygen to break down glucose, while some microbes break down glucose in the absence of oxygen. Food in the form of glucose breaks down into carbon dioxide and water. Since this process takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is known as aerobic respiration. Organisms that break down their food in this manner are called aerobic organisms. There are a few microbes that break down glucose into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This process takes place without oxygen and is hence known as anaerobic respiration. Such organisms are called anaerobic organisms. In both aerobic and anaerobic organisms, when respiration takes place, a glucose molecule that contains 6 carbon atoms is broken down into a molecule that contains 3 carbon atoms. This new molecule is called a pyruvate. This entire process takes place in the cytoplasm of the organism. In aerobic organisms, the pyruvate molecule is further broken down in the mitochondria of a cell. In this process, the pyruvate molecule that contains 3 carbon atoms is broken down into 3 molecules of carbon dioxide and 3 molecules of water. Sometimes our muscle cells may not have enough oxygen. In this case, the pyruvate molecules are broken down in the anaerobic process. Pyruvate molecules get converted into lactic acid, which is also a 3-carbon molecule. This lactic acid builds up in our muscle cells and causes cramps. Both aerobic and anaerobic respiration releases energy. This energy is used to combine adenosine diphosphate, ADP, and inorganic phosphate to form adenosine triphosphate, ATP molecule. ATP is the molecular currency for the transfer of energy in most cellular processes. The energy released in the aerobic process is 19 times greater than in the anaerobic process. When the terminal phosphate linkage in ATP is broken using water, energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoules per mole is released. The energy from ATP is used for cellular activities such as the contraction of muscles, protein synthesis, and conduction of nervous impulses. Stomata are small openings seen on the lower surface of the leaves. The leaves have large intercellular spaces in between the mesophyll cells. This ensures that all the cells are in contact with air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are therefore exchanged through the stomata by diffusion. Diffusion is the process by which a gas from an area of high concentration will move to an area of relatively low concentration until an equilibrium is reached. During the day, carbon dioxide generated during respiration is used up for photosynthesis. Therefore, carbon dioxide is not released. Instead, oxygen is released as a result of photosynthesis. At night, photosynthesis does not occur, but respiration continues. Therefore, only carbon dioxide is released. Animals have different organs for respiration depending on their environment. Animals that live on land take in oxygen from the atmosphere. Aquatic animals, on the other hand, use oxygen that is dissolved in water.
I wonder why goldfish open and close their mouths so many times.
Fish take in water through their mouths. This water has dissolved oxygen in it, which diffuses into their blood. The water is then forced out through their gills. the amount of dissolved oxygen in water is much lower when compared to the amount of oxygen in air. So, the rate of breathing in aquatic organisms is much faster than in terrestrial organisms. This is why a fish opens and closes its mouth a far greater number of times as compared to the number of times you breathe in and out. Terrestrial animals have special organs for taking in oxygen from the atmosphere. All these organs have a structure that is in contact with the atmosphere. This structure increases the surface area for diffusion of air into the organs. The surface of this structure is very fine and delicate in order to allow diffusion of gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen. Since this surface is delicate, it is placed within the body. There are passages in the body that transport the air to this surface, allowing diffusion to take place.
I have a cold. I can't seem to breathe properly.
In human beings, air is drawn into the body through the nostrils. Nostrils are lined with fine hairs and mucus that filter the air as it passes through. Next, the air travels through the throat and then moves through the rings of cartilage called the trachea. The trachea ensures that the air passage does not collapse. From here, the air passes through the bronchi before entering the lungs. The bronchi are like a network of tubes that keep branching into smaller tubes. At the end of each bronchus, you will find balloon-like structures called alveoli. The alveoli provide a surface for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The walls of the alveoli contain a massive network of blood vessels. When we breathe in, we lift our ribs and flatten our diaphragm. As a result, the chest cavity becomes larger. Air gets sucked into the lungs and fills the expanded alveoli. The oxygen in the alveoli is taken in by the red blood cells in the alveolar blood vessels. The oxygen in the red blood cells is then transported to all the cells in the body. The cells in turn release carbon dioxide, which diffuses into the blood and is then released into the alveoli. It is difficult for oxygen to reach all parts of the body through diffusion in larger animals. Hemoglobin, a pigment present in red blood cells, binds with oxygen from the air in the lungs, forming oxyhemoglobin. Later, through oxyhemoglobin, oxygen is distributed to tissues all over the body. The tissues in turn release carbon dioxide, which diffuses into the nearby blood capillaries. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than in oxygen. Therefore, carbon dioxide is generally transported through blood as bicarbonate, which is its dissolved form.
Let us have a recap. Yeah, the glucose, which is came from the food in the simpler form, so that glucose which is present in the cell, through blood it carries to the cell. So there the oxygen is absorbed through respiration, and the glucose which is obtained through digestive system. These two are in the cell, and the oxygen breaks down the glucose into energy. So that process let us see in briefly. So the glucose in the cytoplasm is present in the cell. So the glucose which is in the cell, in the cytoplasm, it divides into pyruvate, means the glucose is 6 carbon molecule. It is divided into 3 carbon molecules plus energy also will be released there. So this pyruvate, you can see here down, see this is pyruvate. After this it will come to the, this is mostly the process of respiration in humans and animals also. So this pyruvate means 3 carbon molecules, this is further divides into energy and carbon dioxide and water also. So in the presence of oxygen, that is this process actually glucose divides into pyruvate, that process done in cytoplasm in cell, and in the cell mitochondria is also present. So in the mitochondria further the pyruvate further it divides into, it will produce the carbon dioxide, water and energy in the presence of oxygen. So in the presence of oxygen, that is the reason it is called aerobic respiration. So the aerobic respiration, first in the cell, in the cytoplasm the glucose divides into pyruvate, and in the mitochondria further the pyruvate produces the carbon dioxide, water and energy in the presence of oxygen. This is what the major respiratory process done in this human beings and animals. And if you see here, the same process here, the glucose converts into pyruvate, and if you say the absence of oxygen, glucose converts into pyruvate, means 3 carbon molecule it converts into, and this 3 carbon molecule further it will produce ethanol and carbon dioxide and energy. Ethanol you can say, otherwise alcohol also you can say. In the video they said alcohol. So this is the process in the absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, that is called anaerobic respiration. So here ethanol means you can see here 2 carbon molecule. It is not 1 carbon molecule. It is not fully divided. So that is the reason here energy is produced lesser than this respiration, aerobic respiration. So in the anaerobic respiration, energy released lesser than aerobic respiration. That is very important point. And one more is there. That is in one more respiration is there, that is anaerobic respiration only, that is respiration in muscle cells. So when we do more exercise and when we do more work, then we need more oxygen. Then what happened? We need more energy also. So then this glucose converts into pyruvate, means 3 carbon molecule, and further it will produce lactic acid and energy. Lactic acid is, you can see here, lactic acid is 3 carbon molecule, means pyruvate also 3 carbon molecules and lactic acid also 3 carbon molecule, means it produce less. Here also the energy produced is lesser than aerobic respiration. So finally here you see 6 carbon molecule, it divides into 3 carbon molecule, and again in the presence of oxygen it divides into carbon dioxide. In the carbon dioxide only 1 C and 2 oxygens, means it divides into 1 C, means the total energy will be produced in the respiration process of aerobic respiration. So this is what the recap of this respiration. So let's move ahead. See, anaerobic respiration, in the yeast cells anaerobic respiration takes place. That process is called fermentation. That process is called fermentation. And in the anaerobic respiration, one more respiration takes place in muscle cells. And this is transportation of oxygen. means when the blood carries the oxygen to the organs, okay, then means tissues. So then 97% in combined state with hemoglobin is, that is called oxyhemoglobin, and 3% dissolved. So oxygen when carried by the blood, then 97% oxygen will carried by hemoglobin, okay, that is called oxyhemoglobin, and 3% of oxygen carried through plasma. And the transportation of carbon dioxide means from tissues it should be carried to the lungs. So there the carbon dioxide transport through 5 to 7% as dissolved in plasma, and 70% as bicarbonate ions in plasma, and 23% in combined state with hemoglobin, that is called carb amino hemoglobin. So here you can see most of the means 5 to 7% and 70% carbon dioxide is carried through blood, means that is plasma, that is around 70, and here 5 to 7% means 75% carbon dioxide carried through plasma, that is important. And the hemoglobin that is combined with the carbon dioxide, that hemoglobin is called what? Carb amino hemoglobin. And these are the differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So please go through this. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please pay attention. And one more time, if you watch this video, you will get to know the things very well. Thank you so much. Have a great day.